Unit 3, Exploring Expository Nonfiction Test. Question 1. Which word is most opposite in meaning to the word essential in paragraph 12? The answer is C, unnecessary. And the reason why is if we look on page 6, we will see that in paragraph 12 it says, a key part of developing the United States and essential to early growth in the state of Florida. It's saying that railroads were. A key part of meaning necessary, and the opposite of necessary is unnecessary, meaning that it is not needed. Question number 2. How are the sections, the development of the railroads and the decline of the railroads, different? Is it F, one list ways to create a railroad system, one list ways to take apart the railroad system? Is it G, one compares railroads in eastern Florida to those in central Florida, one compares railroads to airplanes? H, one explains how railroads help people, one explains why railroads are not good for society, or J, one gives information about how the railroads were built. One gives information about why the railroads lost money. What do you think the answer is? The answer is J. One gives information about how the railroads were built. One gives information about why the railroads lost money. And actually, if you look at page 3 and 4, we can actually see that, excuse me, this is a lot of paperwork, but you understand, you just took the test on it. We have the developments of the railroads, and then everything here keeps telling us everything about the development, all the way down here too. Then when we turn it around on the next page, you'll even notice that it's here. We have this, we have the rise of tourism, and then we start talking about the decline of the railroads. We talk about the depression that also happened. All right. Thank you for following along. Question number 3. As used in paragraph 11, what does the word stiff mean? Is it A, tough, B, limited, C, thick, or D, flexible? The answer is A, tough. And you can go to page 5. And you'll see the word stiff. And it's talking about the growth of air travel also affected the number of people willing to travel by train. The competition for customers was stiff. So we have competition. We're talking about how it was stiff, and all forms of transportation tried to get their share. It was a whole bunch of people trying to get their hand on the big money cake. You know, transportation, competition. So that is the reason why that is that. Meaning everybody competed for the same thing, the customer and the money. That's what they really wanted. Alright, question number 4. How were Henry Flagler and Henry Plant different? Keyword is different. Well, let's go ahead and look at page number 3. Okay, so we have down here at the bottom, we have plant, and that's who we're looking at right now. And it says, while Flagler, Henry Flagler that is, was developing the East Coast, so Flagler was East Coast, 2 other men named Henry were also working at developing railroad lines in the rest of the state. So right now we know that Flagler is east. Remember, Flagler, east. And then the other 2, Plant is one of them, built railroads on the western coast. So Flagler, scratch that out there. Flagler, east, Plant, west. Those are the 2 main things that you need to know there. So therefore, the answer is H. Flagler built railroads on Florida's east coast, and Plant built railroads on Florida's west coast. Question number 5. Based on the information in this article, which is the most accurate statement regarding Florida's railroads? Is it A, they built many bridges that were left incomplete? Is it B, they caused Florida to be subject to harmful hurricanes? Is it C, they caused many conflicts during Florida's development? Or D, they were important because they helped Florida develop? The answer is D. They were important because they helped Florida develop. And the reason why, if you go to, well, if you just go to your passage and you read, you'll be able to see that the whole passage is talking about the development of Florida and from the rise of tourism to railroad and road construction. It's kind of an accurate statement based on the information in this article. It is an inference. But now you know that, in case you didn't know. Alright, question number 6. The word gradual, which I will go ahead and circle, comes from the Latin word gradu, meaning step. Based on this meaning, what does gradually mean in paragraph 6? Gee, I wonder where we're going to go. We're going to go to paragraph 6. So, paragraph 6 is going to be on page 4. And here we have the word gradually, and it says some of them develop gradually, others, and the thing about here is we see others, right? We see this semicolon. Others arrived with the sudden violence of a sledgehammer. We know that sledgehammers, which are big hammers that they use in construction, when you use them, they fall really fast because they're really heavy. Okay? So you can kind of think of this semicolon as saying some of them developed gradually while others arrived with a sudden violence of a sledgehammer. And also, sudden means what? Sudden means very fast. Or you could think of the semicolon as opposite. So some of them are developed gradually, and you say others arrived with sudden violence. So you're like, okay, well, I don't really know what gradually means, but they're saying others, meaning not this one, arrived with sudden violence of a sledgehammer. So opposite. Suddenly is, the opposite of suddenly is steadily. So gradually, steadily. Alright, let's go to the next question here. Number 7. Which of the following sentences is best supported by the photograph of the railroad bridge? Well, is it A, the line was rebuilt and rail travel into southern Florida was fully resumed? The line was not rebuilt and the damage caused by the hurricane contributed to the decline of the railways in Florida? Or is it C, the line was not rebuilt because the interstate highway system was already under construction? Or could it be D, new lines were built in other parts of the state, funneling money away from the Florida Keys? The answer is B. The line was not rebuilt and the damage was caused by the hurricane contributed to the decline of the railways in Florida. So if you're wondering where that's at, that's going to be in page 5. And let's look for that. It is saying here is what we're looking at, right? We're looking at this picture. And we see here it says, remains and still standing. It says the remains of a railroad bridges damaged by hurricanes are still standing in the water surrounding the Florida Keys. Remains means the stuff that is still around after something is gone. For example, the stuff that is still remaining. Plus, that just tells us that the line was not rebuilt and the damage caused by the hurricane contributed to the decline of the railways in Florida, meaning a hurricane had destroyed it. So we can also see that in the next paragraph here. I'll show you on my master copy. Alright, question number 8. In which section would it be best to add information about the development of Disney World in Central Florida? Is it F, tourism, G, plant in Sanford, H, air travel, J, Florida East Coast Railway? The answer is F, tourism. We can go to page 4. And we see here it says tourism, and it says Florida became a popular tourist destination. It says during the final 2 decades of the 1800s, Florida became a tourist destination. Okay, well, people go to Disney for vacation and to visit, and when you visit someplace, you are a tourist. So, Disney. Okay, we're almost there. Question 9. What was one cause of Flagler's first interest in railroads? Is it A, preparing for the creation of the Panama Canal, B, building the Key West extension, C, providing transportation for his hotel guests, or D, increasing his great wealth? The answer is C. And if we go to page 3, it says it right here. When Flagler built the Ponce de Leon Hotel in St. Augustine, which is a pretty city I have been to, you should go there someday, he realized that he needed to provide better transportation for his guests. Wow, that sounds exactly like the answer we needed. Text evidence 101. Alright, question number 10. Which of these did not cause a problem for railroads? Is it F, the growth of the citrus industry? G, the popularity of the automobile? H, the growth of interstate highways? Or J, the striking of railroad workers? Well, the answer is F. The reason why, if we go to page 4, and we look here, it says, I will bracket it off, it also had a flourishing citrus business. So right there it tells us that this was not anything bad. This is actually a positive. A flourishing citrus business, and could now transport tons of fresh fruit to the rest of the country and to the world. Thanks to the railroads, the fruit arrived at the U.S. destinations fresh and ready for sale. Text evidence again. Because you got to remember, when you go to question 10, you look at it and it says, which of these did not cause a problem for railroads? Please. This was a positive. This is a negative. 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 Question 11. What caused the Florida East Coast Railway to stop using the Key West extension? A, a hurricane. B, the Great Depression. C, the growth of the citrus fruit industry. Or D, a fear that D, a fear that railroad, see, even teachers get tongue-tied, railroad workers would strike. The answer is A, a hurricane. If we go to page number 5, we look at it here and we see that it says hurricane devastation. We're talking about it received a hard blow in 1935 when a severe hurricane destroyed what? The Key West extension. Some bad news bears right there. All right. Question number 12. Much of the credit for developing the western coast of Florida belongs to, is it F, the Jacksonville, St. Augustine, and Halifax River line? Is it G, Henry Flagler? Is it H, the Key West extension? Is it J, Henry Plant? The answer is J, Henry Plant. The reason why, if we go to page number 4, we are talking about the western coast of Florida. We actually talked about it earlier. We actually have it circled and underlined here. Plant built railroads on the western coast of Florida, putting Tampa on the map. When you're talking about putting something on the map and your name's associated with it, that means you're a big deal. Flagler was associated with the east. Remember that Plant was associated with the west. Question number 13. The author organizes this article by A. Listing the railroad lines that run through the state of Florida. B. Summarizing the stories of several railroad developers in Florida. C. Describing situations in which railroads proved to be important. D. Relating the history of railroads in Florida over 2 centuries. The answer is D. Relating the history of railroads in Florida for over 2 centuries. This one was a little tricky because you did have to dig kind of deep for this one. So this one's actually going to lie on page 5 and 6. Okay. If you look at the bottom here, it says, the passing of the 20th century marked the decline of the railroads. Now, if you didn't realize that, the 20th century actually started in 1900 all the way to 1999, and we're talking about the passing of that era. So when you're past that era, you end up in the 2000s. It's a little tricky to think about it. And then also, we talked about it at the very beginning. It's actually going to be, page 3.2 is going to tell us something here. Kind of like, we're talking about the 1880s, we're talking about 1869, we're talking about the early 1800s also, and the whole article details the history of the railroads from the 1800s to the end of the 1900s, which would be 1999. 2000, because we're passing 20th century, 2000 minus 1800 is 200. So, there's your answer for that. And 200, we know, is 2 centuries, because 1 century equals 100 years. 2 centuries equals 200 years. So we have, I know this is crazy that we're doing math in here, but 1800 is going to be 200. All right. That's why I teach English, folks. Question 14. According to the map next to paragraph 1, which city is between Pensacola and Jacksonville? Is it F, Tallahassee, G, Cedar Key, H, St. Augustine, or J, Tampa? When you look here, in between Pensacola and Jacksonville, we have Tallahassee. It was blurred, but trust me. F. Question 15. What is the best summary of the article? Is it A, Henry Plant played an important role in developing the railroad on the west coast of Florida. He put Tampa on the map. Henry Sanford built interior railways, bringing people to Central Florida. He transformed the area from isolated agricultural land and laid the foundation for future development. Is it B, Henry Flagler was an important part of development in Florida. Flagler extended railroads from Jacksonville down to Miami and eventually to Key West. As the railroad extended south, development sprang up around the rail lines. Miami and Palm Beach were 2 such communities. In the 1800s, with the backing of Henry Plant, and Henry Sanford, railroads brought tourists to Florida, carried citrus from the state, and caused communities to develop. In the 1900s, the railroads fell into decline due to hurricanes, the Great Depression, and the increase in automobile travel. Or is it D, The railroads fell on hard times during the 20th century. Damage from hurricanes, the Great Depression, and the growing popularity of the automobile took a toll on railways. The interstate highway system made travel by automobile faster and easier, and allowed for the expansion of the trucking industry. Yes, I know it seems like that is just a whole passage in itself, which it pretty much is. Look how big it is on the page. It's right there. Well, the answer is C. In the 1800s, with the backing of Henry Flagler, Henry Plant, and Henry Sanford, railroads brought tourists to Florida, carried citrus from the state, and caused communities to develop. In the 1900s, the railroads fell into decline due to hurricanes, the Great Depression, and the increase in the automobile travel. Let me explain that. The answer here, we're talking about the beginning, right? We're talking about the middle. We're talking about the end. We're talking about accurately providing beginning, middle, and end. And there you go. The answer is C. 16. According to the article in the map, who would have been most likely to build railroad from northern Florida to Punta Rosa? F. Henry Sanford, G. Henry Flagler, H. Florida East Coast Railway, or J. Henry Plant. There are a lot of Henrys, let me tell you. But you already know. You've been reading this thing, hopefully. Well, we're going to look at page number 3 and number 4. Page 3 and page number 4. Okay. All right. We are talking here about how we are looking down for Punta Rosa, which is right here, okay? And we're trying to find a road that is leading down to it. We see it's this one here. If you notice, we have roads on the east coast here. We have roads on the west coast of Florida. Sorry, not east coast, but eastern part, western part. But we have a road that has gone down the middle of it. That is a central road going down to Punta Rosa. And since it's in the middle of Florida, and it's inside of Florida, inside of Florida, inside, another word for that is interior. You have an interior of a house. That means the inside of a house. You have the exterior of a house. You have the outside of a house. Well, this is inside of Florida, therefore it is inside the interior of Florida. So, and if you look here, it says that Henry Sanford built interior railways opening up Central Florida to visitors. That is Central Florida interior, down to Punta Rosa. Alright, I guess y'all know what this means here. That means that the answer is F. And also means we are now at question 17, which is the very end of this test. Thank you for sticking along. I know it's been a journey. Which of the following statements is an opinion based upon the information found in the article? We're looking at an opinion based upon information found in the article. Yes, this article that you have just read. Is it A, the Transcontinental Rail Line was completed in 1869? Is it B, the Overseas Highway was an excellent replacement for the Key West extension? Is it C, Henry Flagler was a business associate of John D. Rockefeller? Or is it D, Henry Flagler bought the Jacksonville, St. Augustine, and Halifax River Line? The answer is B. The Overseas Highway was an excellent replacement for the Key West extension. If you're curious, which I'm pretty sure you are, because you're here. You're here right now. You're listening to this. We're going to go to page number 5. On page number 5, we see in this area here, it says Overseas Highway. Like, wow. Uses much of the same structure to provide a roadway to Key West. So you're like, okay, well, I see that, but how does that tie in? Well, if you read up here, it says the Key West extension that Henry Flagler had built was destroyed in 1935, and it was never rebuilt. Therefore, today, the Overseas Highway uses much of the same structure, so it continued it. It's replaced it. That answer is B. This now concludes your review. Thanks for sticking around. You'll hear from me next time. Hope you did good.